4 weeks in, kind of a bye week convo. I get all that, but we're heading back into game week. Biggest surprise from Tennessee that you've seen so far this year, and then counter if you have one. Biggest worry.
Biggest surprise, probably how consistently they've shown up. It doesn't matter if it's Chattanooga. It doesn't matter if it's Kent State. Like 65 on the board in the first half against Kent State, that's crazy. And whatever it was, 50 something against Chattanooga in the first half. To handle NC State the way they did, to handle Oklahoma in that road environment the way they did, to be in control. I mean, I don't think they've trailed this season. I don't know what the stat is there, but they've just been in so much control, it feels like, from the start, and how consistently they've been in control and how kind of mature and gone about their business what they've done through 4 games. I think that's the biggest reason to be encouraged with this team moving forward, because they've been ready to go since day one out of the gate. The concern is probably offensive tackle, just because of the prisoner of the moment and what we saw at Oklahoma, and you don't have a ton of depth there, and it's hard to play down one tackle or 2 tackles for anybody, but especially for Tennessee. So that could be solved in Fayetteville and moving forward and be fine. Nico, you don't have to put it on his shoulders. You can win football games without Nico being the star. He's really good, extremely elite talent, elite arm. The way he puts the ball on people and the velocity on his passes and the placement is crazy to me. But you got Dylan Sampson, who's got 10 rushing touchdowns through 4 games. Like, that's all that dude does is score touchdowns and get you, it moves the chains when you have to move the chains in those ball possession moments. So just the way they've handled their business, both sides of the football, special teams, they've been really consistent. That's been really impressive to me, and I think they're a really good football team. The offensive tackles, though, you don't really know until you see it. So when we see it, we'll get a better gauge of what that's going to look like moving, kind of down the road a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, again, there's not much to hate on this football team about right now. And as you go throughout the season, maybe some of those awards will pop up. But offensive tackle, because of what happened against Oklahoma, you don't want to be in that situation again. So I agree with that. But Matt, I think you made a really, really good point. Like, my biggest surprise, I guess, was going to be not that the defense is good, but not that the defense is consistent, but the fact that they've been so dominant so far this year. But I think that he brings up, doesn't matter who you're playing. Oklahoma on the road, NC State on neutral site, Kent State at home, UTC to begin the season at noon or whatever, 12:45. Tennessee's ready to go. And I think that is a really, really good point. And also it shows how mature and how veteran-led your football team is. And, not every winning team, championship team's got great locker rooms, but the majority of them do, and I think that stuff matters, and I think Tennessee's got that in the locker room. They're mature, a real mature football team, not just in the position rooms or on the field on the depth chart, but just the way they go about their business.
Yeah, they are. And, I'll go for biggest surprise inside of that defense and how dominant they've been. I think for me is Jermod McCoy. Through 4 games, he's been as good as any quarterback in the country. Now, granted, UTC, Kent State, Oklahoma, and NC State, how much more is he going to get tested down the stretch? A lot. But, you knew that Tennessee had to go get a transfer cornerback, and he is one that has really alleviated some struggles to at least start 2024 in that secondary. A guy that looks like a true number 1 corner, something that the Vols have needed for some time. So I think for me, it felt like Jermod McCoy was going to come to Tennessee. He was going to play a lot of football. Given what he did at Oregon State, he was going to make some plays. I just wasn't expecting him to play at as high a level as he has to this point. And then, biggest concern, I think you can beat the offensive tackle depth to death. It's obviously very clear for Tennessee that that's a concern. No matter how, deep and talented that front 7 of Oklahoma is, and they are deep and they are talented, a very good unit that can rush the passer and do a lot of different things to stress the offensive line. But yet, like Grant said, that can be, cured as early as this week. Tennessee can get a healthy John Campbell, a healthy Lance Hurd back if both those guys are good to go in Fayetteville and keep moving right along and not have any issues with that. So I think that's a concern. And then I think just overall for Tennessee is just continuing to stay healthy, right? I mean, no matter what, we've talked about Tennessee having more depth, but you can't lose guys at certain spots. And that's a concern for any football team in the country right now moving forward from Alabama, Georgia, all the way down the board. So,
Rob, you got the last word, man. Surprises, if you have any concerns for Tennessee football, a pretty good start, 4-0, a third of the way in.
Yeah, mine just echo what you guys have said. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the tackles or offensive tackles very long. And the only reason that's a concern is because of, recency bias, what we just saw. I mean, we saw it. It's, you need both those guys to be healthy, or you need, a couple of guys to be healthy. And defensively, I'll kind of echo my twist would be, I'm surprised, like you, Eric, at the overall. Nobody's surprised at the defensive line. I'm surprised at the linebackers, and I'm not just surprised at Keenan Pili and Aaron Carter. I'm surprised at T-Lander. I'm surprised that Jalen Smith is playing. Not just Jermon McCoy, but Ricky Gibson. It looks legitimate. It looks like this isn't exactly a high bar. Nobody's going to call this defensive back university for the past decade, but that's the best pair of corners Tennessee's had in a long time. I mean, again, that's a low bar, but yeah, just the overall quality of the defense. Could not be less surprised about the defensive front, but the totality of it on that side of the ball didn't quite expect that level.
Yeah, you brought up a really, really good point about the linebackers. I won't go as far as to say surprise, because I just thought, like, you didn't have Pili last year. Aaron Beasley was playing hurt all year long. You lost Aaron Carter. Brian John Murray did the best he could. He was force-feeding those young guys. I thought it was going to be improved, but I will say, I mean, they've been better than I thought they'd be. Keenan Pili, I know we heard a lot, but Keenan Pili's been so much better than I thought he would. He's a really good football player.
He's way better in space than I thought he would be.
Yeah, and
I'm not surprised that he's a thumper between the tackle. I mean, that's what I thought. But he can make on the perimeter out in space on guys.
And I think Aaron Carter is just miles. And again, he was a young player playing as a true freshman last year. I think he's just a different player. He looks different as well, slimming down a little bit. I think Aaron Carter's had a really, really good start to his season. So Tennessee's 4-0. Tennessee is off to a great start. Tennessee is rested from the bye week last week. We'll continue practicing, hit the road for the second straight true road game before coming back home for quite some time at Neyland Stadium. It'll be Tennessee and Arkansas. We'll preview that game. We will talk about it from every single angle right here at Volquest.com from now until kickoff.